Why Sigma INFJs can't be brainwashed. They live in a world built on control, a society that feeds on distraction, conformity, and quiet obedience. But the Sigma INFJ was never built for blind submission. They were born with eyes that pierce through illusions, with intuition that refuses to bow to manipulation, while others are conditioned by trends, ideologies, and collective noise. The Sigma INFJ stands alone, detached, watchful and frighteningly aware. They don't follow, they don't obey, and they don't surrender their truth for comfort. The world can try to indoctrinate them with fear, lure them with belonging, or crush them with shame. Yet something inside remains untouchable, because their mind doesn't bend. It burns, and when you try to brainwash a Sigma INFJ, you only awaken the part of them that remembers that they were never meant to fit in. They were meant to see through. 1. Their mind is designed to detect manipulation. A Sigma INFJ's intuition is not a gentle whisper. It's an internal radar, constantly scanning for hidden motives, emotional inconsistencies, and psychological traps. They read between the lines with terrifying precision, sensing when something doesn't align with truth. While most people respond to external authority, experts, leaders, influencers, the Sigma INFJ silently questions everything. Their mind doesn't absorb information blindly. It dissects, interprets, and filters through an internal moral compass. They sense tone before meaning, energy before words, and intention before action. This is why manipulative systems fail to contain them. They see the power structures, the psychological games, and the quiet conditioning that most overlook. To brainwash someone, you must first bypass their awareness. But awareness is the Sigma INFJ's default state. They walk through life with mental alarms, ready to sound at the first hint of deceit. Every commercial, narrative, or ideology is silently tested against their truth filter. And that's what makes them dangerous to control. They can't be hypnotized by charisma or groupthink because their intuition keeps whispering, "This doesn't feel right." 2. They have a moral compass that can't be reprogrammed. Unlike most, the Sigma INFJ doesn't need external validation to determine what's right. Their ethics are self-authored, formed through observation, empathy, and brutal introspection, while others are swayed by societal trends or authority figures. The INFJ's integrity is built from internal conviction. They might adapt to survive, but never surrender their principles. This moral independence is what makes them immune to propaganda. They don't believe something simply because everyone else does. They believe it only if it resonates with their deep sense of justice. Even under social pressure or emotional manipulation, they remain still, anchored in an invisible code that says, "I will not betray what I know is right." Brainwashing thrives on moral confusion, when people doubt their own compass. But the Sigma INFJ has already journeyed through the chaos of human morality. They've seen the cruelty masked as kindness, the lies dressed as virtue, and they've chosen to remain loyal to their truth even when it costs them everything. You can't brainwash a mind that has already questioned the foundations of morality itself and chosen to stand alone. 3. They thrive in solitude, where indoctrination dies. Control works best on those who crave belonging. But solitude is the Sigma INFJ's oxygen. They don't fear isolation. They use it to refine their mind. While others drown in the noise of society, the INFJ retreats into silence, where thoughts sharpen and illusions crumble. Solitude gives them clarity, the one thing manipulation cannot survive. Propaganda relies on crowd psychology, but Sigma INFJs are lone wolves who distrust the crowd. They don't follow movements, they observe them. They don't chant slogans, they question who wrote them. Their detachment isn't coldness, it's preservation. It's their way of protecting their psyche from contamination by collective thinking. Because when you spend enough time alone, you start to hear the truth beneath the noise. And the Sigma INFJ has lived long enough in silence to know what that truth sounds like. The world can't brainwash someone who doesn't need it for identity. They belong to themselves. 4. Their empathy sees through emotional manipulation. Ironically, what others might see as weakness, empathy, is the Sigma INFJ's greatest weapon against control. They don't just feel emotions, they decode them. When someone tries to emotionally manipulate or guilt-trip them, the INFJ can feel the dissonance between genuine care and hidden agenda. Their empathy functions like X-ray vision, exposing manipulation disguised as compassion. Brainwashing tactics often target emotion, fear, shame, belonging. But Sigma INFJs can feel when emotion is being used as a weapon. They notice the subtle emotional shifts that reveal hypocrisy or deceit. This emotional clairvoyance gives them an uncanny ability to walk away from psychological traps before they tighten. They might appear emotionally invested, but deep down, they're analyzing the entire dynamic. You can't emotionally enslave someone who sees through emotion itself. Their empathy is both shield and sword, protecting their humanity while cutting through manipulation's disguise. 5. They've already faced their own darkness. Brainwashing preys on unhealed people, those afraid of their shadow. But the Sigma INFJ has already walked through the underworld of their own psyche. They've faced guilt, shame, fear, and rage dissected them, sat with them, and integrated them. Their self-awareness dismantles any external attempt to control them through internal weakness. You can't terrify someone who's already made peace with fear. You can't shame someone who's already forgiven themselves. And you can't confuse someone who's already dissected their contradictions. Sigma INFJs are masters of self-reflection. They constantly ask, why do I think this way? Why do I feel this? Questions that dismantle psychological conditioning before it takes root. The world can only brainwash those who refuse to meet themselves. But the INFJ has already met their inner monster and walked out wiser, freer, and immune. 6. They don't worship authority, they observe it. To brainwash a person, you must first convince them that authority equals truth. But the Sigma INFJ sees authority for what it is, a construct, not a compass. They study leaders and institutions like scientists studying an experiment, noting inconsistencies, hidden agendas, and the emotional hooks used to bind people to obedience. They don't hate authority, they simply refuse to worship it. Their allegiance lies with truth, not titles. This skepticism makes them ungovernable in mind. They'll listen, but they won't obey unless it aligns with their intuition. They're too self-directed to need approval, and too independent to crave permission. Where others see hierarchy, the Sigma INFJ sees human insecurity dressed in power. They know that many systems of control rely on psychological projection, the illusion that someone else knows better. But the Sigma INFJ trusts no illusion. They see the emperor without his clothes, and silently, defiantly, they walk away. 7. They possess pattern recognition beyond the average mind. The Sigma INFJ doesn't just notice patterns, they live inside them. Their minds operate like data analysts of the soul, connecting emotional, behavioral, and ideological dots across time. They see propaganda cycles, emotional contagion in crowds, and subtle linguistic shift that condition people to think a certain way. They know that control never happens overnight. It's built drip by drip, belief by belief. But their foresight ruins the plan. They recognize when a narrative is engineered, when fear is manufactured, and when conformity is disguised as safety. Their intuitive pattern recognition is why they often feel decades ahead of their time, warning others about manipulations they can't yet see. And though people might mock them for being paranoid or too deep, the Sigma INFJ smiles quietly, because they know what looks like paranoia to the blind is simply pattern recognition to the awakened. 8. They are loyal only to truth, not tribe. The final reason Sigma INFJs can't be brainwashed is the one that isolates them the most. Their loyalty lies not with tribe, ideology, or identity, but truth itself. They are the rare few who would rather stand alone in clarity than be loved in illusion. Their allegiance isn't to any social group, belief system, or authority figure, it's to authenticity. This detachment from tribal thinking makes them the hardest to control, because they can't be seduced by belonging. While most people will betray their own truth to remain accepted, the Sigma INFJ would rather face exile than self-betrayal. That's why they are often misunderstood as cold or arrogant, when in reality, they are simply unwilling to lie to themselves for comfort. The brainwashing machine depends on conformity, but the Sigma INFJ has transcended conformity entirely. They belong to the truth, and truth cannot be brainwashed. In the end, they walk alone, not because they can't fit in, but because they refuse to surrender their mind to a world that thrives on control. And that defiance, quiet, disciplined, and eternal, is their greatest rebellion. To brainwash a mind, you must first find fear, dependency, or denial. But in the Sigma INFJ, those doors are sealed shut. They've faced fear, mastered solitude, dissected emotion, and dethroned false authority. They are not perfect, but they are awake. And when an awakened mind meets a controlling world, it doesn't collapse, it observes, learns, and quietly outsmarts it. That is why the Sigma INFJ remains unbroken. Not because they're untouchable, but because they've learned the ultimate truth. Once you see the strings, you can never again be a puppet.